You want to take your football jig game to the next level? Today we're going Hulk Hogan style on them. We're putting them in a headlock. Today we're throwing the Deps Super Headlock Football Jig. Northern Strain style. Hit that like and subscribe, and let's go.
With a spinner in front and a skirt behind, a big bass setup gonna make her mine. Now she shimmies like a snake and she wiggles like a worm. For that hula skirt his desire did burn. I'm a fishing man out on a lake. I got a boat full of tackle and a pole that'll never break.
All right, the Deps Super Headlock Jig. It's their football head jig. They also make a headlock, which is just a smaller version of this. Now, yeah, I'm sorry, my bait's all beat up, but that's because I'm out here throwing these baits. I'm not just sitting at home talking about it, taking it out the package. This is what we do at Northern Strain Style. We go out and fish these baits. I mean, the skirt, forget about it. It's all beat up. The football head. Now, this is what's important here. See how far the eyelid is there back on this head? So what that does is this football jig, instead of just going forward right away, it's going to roll first. And see how it's kind of already just like positioned in my hand? That's natural. And then it's just going to roll up like that. And then it pulls forward. So there's less chance of a hang up and it has a more natural action. There's the bait keeper on it. Now this is another just awesome feature on this. Check that hook out. I hope you guys can see that. This hook and the one on the regular headlock are just, it curls in right there, and they're a little finessey, so you got to be a little careful with your pound line and how heavy of a rod you go with, because you don't want to bend the hook out. Now, another thing that's going to separate your jig game from other people's is going with a straight worm style trailer. And man, in the summertime, when your Nico rig bite's going, when your money jig or jig worm bite's going, and you want to switch it up a little bit, I'm telling you, hit them with a jig with a straight tail worm on it. This is the Yamamoto Nico worm. Use whatever worm you want. Sometimes I'll use I was using a Yum Dinger, I've used Cincos, I've used cut tail worms. But bam, there's your setup. How sweet is that? Good. Deps headlock, super headlock, Yamamoto Nico worm trailer. Ooh, easy, buddy. Ain't that big, but he choked it. This setup here too is a big player down in Mexico. That's where I got the idea from. And typical jig, typical football jig, I'm casting it on the outsides of weed lines, dragging it by, I'm casting it out on humps, I'm casting it around rocks, gravel, you know, typical jig fishing. I'm dragging it, I'm bouncing it, stroking it up and down. Whatever way they start biting, then, you know, I'll start fishing the bait that way. But you always want to kind of change your retrieve up until you figure out what they want. Good. Outside lead line. Just trying to throw it tight as possible. There. 77-degree water. It's like bath water. And another thing too is a lot of people, they'll finish their cast early. You know, you'll work your bait 3/4 of the way back to the boat and then reel up. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten bit where it's like your line looks like your line's underneath the boat, you know, and then as soon as the direction, you know, from just going along the bottom to shooting straight up, man, you get a good reaction bite that way, more so than if it's 3/4 of the way out there, then you start reeling your bait up and it comes in like that. But that straight up, I'm telling you. And in fact, I fished state with this dude who was throwing a craw tube or tube craw, and actually he came down and ate at the restaurant in Mexico too. That's right. But anyway, that dude would fish the craw tube like, I mean, I swear he would trolling motor over the top of the bait. You know, that's how far he was working it back to the boat. You know, I seen him set the hook and it looked like the fish was already on the other side of the boat, you know, and it was straight up and down, you know, like he was ice fishing his bait. Yeah, awesome fisherman. Stacked up and hungry. Hey, that's a good. It's a real good one. I'm throwing it on a 7.5 medium heavy with 16-pound fluorocarbon and an 8-to-1 gear ratio. Now you want a high gear ratio so when you cast it way out there and the fish hits it and runs with it or runs towards the boat, you can keep up with the fish and still get a good hook in them. A lot of people, you know, they think, oh, that's too fast or that's too high of a gear ratio. But the thing is too, you can slow down how fast you reel. You can't speed up a 6-to-3 gear ratio. 6-to-3 gear ratio, you can't speed it up faster than it can go. It can only go so fast. That's why I prefer these higher gear ratio reels. Now there is sometimes too where those high gear ratio reels hurt you, like if you're crankbaiting and it's too fast for the crankbait, it's just making it run all funky. But for jig fishing, that is another great tip for keeping these fish pegged and getting the hook into them. Good. Deps super headlock jig. Outside weed line, it's a fat one too. Nice one.
spent a week inside a little country jail, and I don't guess I'll ever live it down.